Really, huh? Cool. Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Paul Romero. Um, Here we are with the SellaHouse Wholesale Trading Series. We are on number 8 today, and we have a special guest. Not a special guest. We have our usual partner here, who was pretty much away all last week, out scoring us deals. Say good morning, John.
Good morning, Paul, and it is a fantastic morning. Just to let people know the power of this wholesaling is that I got something locked up under option yesterday, and I will have a buyer in there this morning as soon as we're done with this call who will be opening escrow, the $5,000 deposit that's going to be immediately released to Paul and I. So, hey, Paul, we're going to have a payday today.
Yeah, oops. Worst case scenario, it delays. Sometimes, obviously, that delays a little bit, and we have cash tomorrow. But yeah, just that quickly over the weekend, you get a contract. Well, it was a little bit more than over the weekend. You were working on that last week, but probably what, maybe maybe 10 or 15 hours you got into this deal so far, John?
Yeah, that's including driving out to the property, negotiating the seller, comping it out, taking pictures, sending it out to buyers, talking to my buyers on the phone. So a lot of that is fun, easy kind of stuff to do. Out of that 15 hours, 2 hours was spent building a relationship with buyers and other, which essentially investors to fund the deals and getting better and sharpening my skills of negotiation, if that. But yeah, that's how quick I've been working on that one for a couple of weeks. Sometimes you got to play with your buyers a little bit, negotiate them, but eventually you'll come to a price that works for you, works for them, and works for your end buyer. And a simple 15 minutes spent sending some emails yesterday, got a contract on it, and a couple text messages. I'll have my buyer going out there first thing this morning, and pretty much he's going to take it. He just wants to see that what I said the property is, the property is. So
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things right there about wholesaling, where people lose it is they get a call from somebody that might have a deal, but maybe the numbers aren't right. The person starts out saying they want, X amount of dollars when, you're looking at your wholesale numbers and you're saying, well, I got to have it at this. Well, that's not going to be a deal. So they let it go and they never talk to that person again. And the next thing you know, some other wholesalers picked them up, started talking to them, and they've worked out, by that time, maybe the people are starting to come to a little bit of realization as to what they really have. That's one thing you got to understand is people always have an overinflated expectation of what they have, and not always, but I mean a lot of times, especially when the market is now. The market's changed. There was couple of years ago, people were throwing houses. I mean, you couldn't. You had to have a big old catcher's mitt so you could catch them because they were throwing them at you. Take this thing, please. Take it, please. Now, the market's changed. The perception of the market has changed. People's attitudes are different. There isn't a glut of people losing houses to foreclosures, et cetera, and so on. So the attitude has changed, and there's a lot more people now, like I said, that have an over expectation of value as to what they have. Because they're in, obviously your market where you're at right now might be different. Phoenix is kind of like ahead of the curve right now. It's kind of leading the nation in what's happening. Your market right now could be in the hot feeding frenzy of, there's a lot of deals and a lot of easy deals to pick up out there. We've already surpassed that. The Phoenix market is already pretty much maxed out in value recovery to the point of where a lot of areas are actually even depreciating in value already. Again, some are still going up, but it's over 2 years, the value shot up like 14% a year, 35% in some areas over just a 2-year period. from 2011 to the end of 2013. I mean, prices just skyrocketed. You could not make a bad move on a deal because, I mean, heck, even if the seller wasn't willing to negotiate down far enough to where you thought you needed to have it today, and you got a 30-day or a 60-day contract on it, closing date on it, hey, just wait 28 days, and all of a sudden the value is up 6-7% in 3 weeks, and hey, the margin that you needed is now there, and you can sell that property. I mean, it was no brainer, Bill. But it's different now. Wouldn't you agree, John?
Absolutely, the market's changed. A lot of investors got stuck at the end of last year buying properties they thought would just appreciation would just continue, and I'm seeing a lot of on the market, a lot of rehab properties that aren't selling, and they won't sell because investors made some bad choices. It's definitely a different market this year than it is last year, and the sellers are slow to realize that this is becoming a buyer's market in Phoenix again. Pricing has definitely changed, and you definitely got to be more careful in the Phoenix market right now with your purchases. It's kind of flatlined a bit. In some areas, as Paul said, I've seen come down quite a bit since last year. That's where, to be a successful wholesaler, that's another tool, is you've got to learn how to understand your market. And that's kind of what we talked about at the end of last week, was to go out to those ASREA meetings and meet the buyers and meet the investors, and not the quiet, nervous newbie in the back of the room, but the guy that's there obviously wheeling and dealing, making deals, because those guys will know. For the most part, they should know. A lot of them still don't. So you've got to be careful who you talk to. But the point here with this conversation this morning is you got to know your market. Every market's a little different. So, me and Paul here in Phoenix can definitely springboard you on the road to success and show you how to wholesale a deal. But that can only go so far, and the approach is slightly different in each market. The ratios and what your buyers are willing to spend is going to be different in each market. And that's the point I'd like to make, is just understand what your market is doing. Be careful out there. As a wholesaler, we take on very little risk. That deal we were talking about earlier. My earnest deposit on that option, I gave the guy $10. I can afford to lose $10. I won't have coffee from the gas station for the next 10 days if I don't, make my $10 back. But, the guy.
Really 10? I thought it was 100.
Not on the option. I ended up getting the option, $10 consideration.
Sweet.
But the guy buying, your fix and flip buyer, or maybe you're watching this wholesale to say, hey, how do these guys score these wholesale deals? I don't want to wholesale it. I want to flip it myself. I want to fix it, flip it myself. You're going to obviously have some more risk, so you're going to have to be a little bit more careful than the wholesaler. But know your market. Anything you want to add to that, Paul, before we get into today's topics?
Well, I don't know that we're getting. I think we already got into today's topic. I think today's topic just changed, and that's fine. We don't really need to. I don't really need to hammer on these guys today. We can hammer on them tomorrow. But no, I want to just actually kind of continue on with this. I think because we are inviting people from all over the nation, right? Wherever your market is, it makes no difference. We can help you get started doing wholesaling, as we talk about, from the meat, from the core of wholesaling, and working your way out and figuring out the stuff that comes along with it as you go, picking up checks along the way. But I just want to go back and talk about the market a little bit more, and the fact that, like I was saying, the Phoenix market is leading the nation in what your market is probably somewhere in the process of what we've been through already between now and, like I said, basically pretty much about the middle to late 2010. From that point till now, your market is probably somewhere in that range We're out in front. We've already seen it, which is another reason why we can really give you pertinent information as to what's going on in your market and what might be able to what you may and may not be able to do within your market. You know where you're at right now, what you can kind of expect, what things that you can look out for. Like John said, there's a lot of investors right now in this market that jumped on the bandwagon late, which is that's just natural. That's what happens. That's the way of the world. You know, something happens first. It's hot. It's ready to get in, and then by the time that it's basically almost over, that's when it really hits the masses, and that's when most of the quote average normal people find out about this information and, oh, this is the hot thing. Well, the hot thing's fizzling out and they're jumping in. And a lot of that happened, like you said, at the end of 2013 there, and people were, it was insane. People were, I mean, multiple offers on a property. Like, I mean, I was talking to people where an REO would come out and they would put it out at a decent price, and there would be offers on that thing, like 15, 25 offers on a property, and it would end up selling over the price, which the price itself would have been good, but it would end up selling over the price in such that, being at the tail end of the skyrocketing appreciation, all of a sudden there's no more appreciation. They overpaid for that property. They jump in. They start doing their rehab work. They put their 20K into the rehab that's already done. All their money's sunk into it, and now the market stopped going up like they thought it was going to be going up. And guess what happened? Now they can't sell the property for a profit, but they still try because, I mean, that's what they got into this for, was to make a profit, and they don't want to let go of that. So they're trying and trying and trying to push this property at an overinflated price, and it's not going anywhere. Next thing you know, it's going down and down and down. Next thing you know, they're starting to drop the price, drop the price, drop the price. Their hard money's going up. They're paying more and more hard money after month. The amount of money they have into this deal is going up and up and up. Their prices are coming down and down and down, and these people are losing money right now. I mean, they're lucky if they're breaking even on these properties.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Me and Paul did a deal last year. I think this is kind of shows you a real life example from experience of what's happened to this market. We had a property in a town neighboring Phoenix called Tempe, Arizona. Property by ASU College, by the new light rail system. We comped this thing out at full retail at around $150 when we had picked up the deal. We ended up pulling this down for $35,000. It was a mold house. It did need quite a bit of work. But we pegged that thing at $150, and we picked it up at $35, and we just basically just cleaned it out. Pulled out the carpets, pulled out the furniture, donated a bunch of stuff, and we sold it to another wholesaler for $67,000. Great payday, you'd say, right? We made what is that? $32,000. And thinking that 67 would have been a good price to pick it up at for a retail fix and flip guy, because he put his 30K in, 35K, flip it for the 150, and walk out of there with a handsome profit. What ended up happening on that property is that wholesaler we sold it to found one of those Johnny-come-lately, I'm going to buy based on the potential future appreciation of the property, and ended up buying it off that wholesaler for $89,000. So another wholesaler made $22,000 off the property, and I watched that one. They did a very expensive, elaborate, beautiful rehab, and then put the property out at $186. Needless to say, that property sat on the market for about, was it 4 months, Paul? 4 months.
At least. I think it might have been 5.
Yeah. And eventually it sold for, get ready, $145,000. So the only person that got screwed here was the Johnny-come-lately end-tail investor who bought this thing at 89, after closing was in it at 91, put $35,000 in it, and sold it for 145, and with his hard money and his holding time, he basically broke even. And that's where you've got to know your market, especially if you're fixing and flipping yourself. There's one lesson that I've learned from investors, and that's you don't buy based on future appreciation. You buy based on a percentage of today's retail. Meaning, if things look great in your market and retail right now is 150 and it's projected to go up to 200,000, you do not buy that property expecting the $200,000 appreciation to take place. You buy it based on today's value of 150, and then of course at a percentage of that, so if the market drops, you don't lose. And there's a saying too, when you've got a property and you put that up for sale and you want top dollar and you're getting offers well below what you think it's worth, maybe it's time to say, hey, you know what? I can walk away with a nice profit rather than the grand slam and get out of here on this thing. That's what you do, because you know what? Pigs get fat, but hogs get slaughtered. And when you try to, when you get greedy in this business, that's when you lose. So know your market. Be careful what you're buying. Don't buy based on a future appreciation at all. And as a wholesaler, know your buyers and what they'll pay, so you're not wasting your time contracting properties you're not going to be able to sell.
But that's the one great thing about wholesaling is we're not buying anything. So it doesn't make any difference to us because we're not the ones that are out there, actually having to do the rehabs and turn around and flip those properties and have to worry about what the market's doing. So, as intensely as they do. I mean, the reason we need to know what's going on in the market, obviously, is so we can contract a property at the right price. The end game, that flips over to into somebody else's hands, and they're the ones that have to, stress about what's the market, quote, going to do over the next couple of months. You only need to know really where's the market at right now. We don't really have to carry around that crystal ball and worry about what's going to happen. Now, if you're in that part of the market where the prices are skyrocketing, then yes, you have to be aware of that, because if you're looking at what the property is right now and you're making your offers based on that, and you've got some competition on there and they're making their offers based on the future appreciation, you're obviously going to get outbid every time. So, that's where you need to understand what's happening in the market. Where are the masses mindset? What are the masses thinking? And that's like what John says. You go down to the RIA meeting and talk to people, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're right. It just tells you what they're thinking. Okay, as long as you kind of know what they're thinking, you can play their game. Because you need to be able to, like I said, if they're thinking that they're buying based on the fact that prices are going up 5% a month, and they have been for the last 3 months, and they're buying thinking, okay, by the time I rehab this, I'm going to have another 5, 10, 15% increase in value, then yeah, you better be making your offer at a price that's based on, hey, I'm thinking 3 months ahead, 15% more in value. I'm looking at today, it's worth X. I could offer Y. I better offer, somewhere, a little bit higher than that, or I'm never going to pick up a deal. So knowing your market is extremely important. But for us, like I said, having to worry about the end game isn't an issue whatsoever, because we don't have any risk in the deal. Okay, worst case scenario, as we've always talked about with wholesaling, you don't get that deal sold, and you go back to your seller and you say, hey, listen, we got an issue here. We're not going to be able to purchase this property. We'd be happy to renegotiate with you on another price, but if you're not willing to go down, then we're going to just have to let you have this contract back, and we're going to move on. So that's the extent of our risk in the game, is the embarrassment of having to go do that, which, hey, you don't want to be known as the guy who takes down a 100 properties and sends back 87 of them or 97 of them either. So, you want to be making offers at prices where you're actually going to be selling deals, because obviously that's where you make checks as well too. So there's a lot of little nuances that go into why you need to know your market, but it is a key factor in the wholesale game. Anything else you got, John?
Yeah, I want to add one thing you said to something you said about talking to people and what the potential buyers would be flipping your deals to. Really, there's no facts really in this business. Everything is opinion. So, and you never want to tell anybody they're wrong. Like if you've got a buyer on your list, in the case of this Tempe property I talked about, who's willing to overpay 20 grand on the property, I say sell it to him. I say cash in. I mean, he might be right, you might be wrong. It's all opinion. And I'd like to follow the opinions of the buyers that bring me the most cash when I have a deal. So, but know your market, know who your buyers are, know what they're looking for, know what you need to contract those properties at, the percentage of ARV, and every market's different. And a lot of these programs out there will tell you, as a wholesaler, you're going to go out and if a property's worth 100 grand, you're going to bid 60% of value minus repairs. So if it needs 20K in repair for a 100 grand property, I'm going to go out there and offer $40,000. And yes, it happens, but in Phoenix, few and far between. But if you know your buyers and what they're willing to pay, like right now, our buyers are willing to pay about 82% of retail minus their repair costs. In some markets, that would be a ridiculous amount to offer. And this one, that's to be in the game, that's kind of what you got to do. But it's knowing the buyers that, it's knowing the market, which will bring more success to your business. So, yeah, I just wrap it up with that. It's just, I guess the point of today's call was just the importance of understanding what's happening out there. And the only way to do that, again, is to network and meet real-life investors and pick their brains. Find out what the real boots on the ground are doing and not what some, what they're saying in the newspapers, what they're saying on the news, or what some generic guru program on the internet is telling you to go out and do to score deals. You gotta get your feet, your hands dirty and your feet wet and put your boots on the ground and meet some real life investors and find out from them what it is they think is going on. So that's my final thought for today.
Yeah. Well, boy, that time flies, doesn't it, when you're having fun and giving out brilliant information. So, yeah, I mean, this whole conversation started off basically us looking at the deal that John just locked up, in the fact that we had a seller that had an overinflated expectation of what they had on their hands, and we had to work with them for a good, probably, 10 days to 2 weeks, John?
I made initial contact actually about 2 months ago. Finally contracted them a week and a half ago at a price. We can go into strategy at a price I knew was not the right price.
Right.
There was a strategy behind that, which we can talk about on future calls. But I essentially got it down to the price we needed to get it at.
Yeah. I just wanted
an aggressive negotiation tactic. But yeah, they had an inflated expectation. I knew what my buyers would pay, and I got them to see the light of day and got them to understand what's really happening in the market.
Yeah, I just wanted the time frame on that because I wanted to express the fact that, which was actually where I started thinking that we would take this call in the very, very beginning, but we switched that even switched over to market, knowing your market. But I was actually initially looking to direct this call towards talking about the importance of following up with people. I mentioned at the beginning of the call that most wholesalers make that contact with that seller. They look at the deal, they make their offer. The seller doesn't like it. They say, okay, see ya, there you go, thanks a lot, that's what it is. And the next thing you know, they're off and some other wholesalers picking that deal up 2 months later. That's why I wanted to ask you what that time frame was. 2 months ago was the initial contact, And yesterday, we're securing the contract that we'll end up having a buyer and closing on today. So with that, I think we're going to put an end to this here today. We didn't even get into the actual subject matter that I had wrote down that we thought we were going to direct this call to, but that's the way it goes. You got to be flexible out there. You got to be willing to roll with the punches and take what comes, and that's pretty much wholesaling in a nutshell right there. So with that, I'm out of here. We'll be back here again on Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. And maybe we'll get into today's content that was on schedule, or maybe we'll go in another direction. Who knows? But you'll get it all eventually. All right, I'm out of here, John.
I'm out of here. Make it a great week. Send us an email. Please leave comments at the bottom of the video and let us know what you think. Suggestions for future topics. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, go get that thing sold and get some money in escrow.